Hey, listeners, quick editorial note here on episode number 124. After I recorded it, I went back and listened or reviewed the video and audio. And unfortunately, as I was recording it, I was battling a bit of a cold at the time. So as you will hear, my voice unfortunately gets a little rough towards the end of the episode. So my apologies for that. It's actually not bad audio or any problem with your listening device, just was my voice battling a cold. So appreciate you bearing with me on that and for tuning in. And with that, here's the episode. What is an RIA-friendly broker-dealer? That is today's question on the Transition to RIA question and answer series. It is episode number 124. Hi, I'm Brad Wales with Transition to RIA, where I help you understand everything there is to know about why and how to transition your practice to the RIA model. If you're not already there, if you head on over to start by going to transitiontoria.com, you can find all of the resources I make available from this entire series in video format, podcast format. I have articles, I have white papers, all kinds of things to help you better understand the RIA model. Again, transitiontoria.com. Okay, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about what is an RIA-friendly broker-dealer. Now, this is something that comes up in a lot of conversations I have with advisors, but I also realize at times I perhaps am just casually using that term, whether on these episodes or when I'm talking to advisors and recognizing, okay, well, maybe everyone doesn't necessarily know what that means, what that is we're referring to, what is a so-called RIA-friendly broker-dealer. So I want to make this episode to go over essentially what that is. So a little backstory to understand ultimately what the friendly broker-dealer is keep in mind as a financial advisor, most likely nowadays, unless you are perhaps already an RIA and 100% fee only, you are likely ultimately wearing two hats right now. And by what I mean by that is if you're with, for instance, a wirehouse firm, or you're with a regional firm or independent broker-dealer firm, you're likely under kind of two entities, if you will, of that firm. Now, we historically have referred to those firms that I just named, a wirehouse, an independent broker-dealer, we refer to those as broker-dealers. Now, the backstory there is because historically, that's what they were primarily and solely were broker-dealers. If you were a quote-unquote financial advisor that worked for one of those broker-dealers, you were technically a registered representative of the broker-dealer. A broker is what you might be referred to as, and everything you did for clients was on a transactional basis for a commission. That still exists. Now, it's not obviously as prevalent as it once was. Again, at one point, that was what your typical financial advisor was 100% transactional, 100% commission in that capacity, and they worked under that broker-dealer. Now, many of these large firms also at some point in time, and usually by now it's been decades ago, added an affiliated RIA to their broker-dealer, often referred to as a corporate RIA. And so your firm possibly has that broker-dealer and has the RIA, and you as the advisor are likely, again, in most situations, you are under that broker-dealer as a registered representative. Again, that's what enables you or allows you to do commission transactions. And also, you're wearing the hat of an investment advisor representative, an IAR of the RIA. That's what allows you to do fee-based business with clients. And again, many advisors out there essentially have both hats. So a new prospective client walks in, that advisor can work with them on a commission basis if they choose to, or a fee basis, or possibly some of both if that was the case. And so functionally, you're working under this broker-dealer and RIA. Coincidentally, particularly on the independent broker-dealer space, because of the trend to go more fee-based, there are now more client assets at those large independent broker-dealers under the RIA side of things than the broker-dealer side of things. So arguably, we shouldn't be just defaulting to call these entities broker-dealers because now they're actually more RIA than they are a broker-dealer, but because that's how we've called them for decades, we'll probably continue to just refer those as, that's a broker-dealer. But with that context, that you're probably wearing both those hats, that is essentially what enables you that ability to kind of offer both solutions, commission or fee, that's where you kind of heard the term hybrid come in. Now, I did a separate episode on what is a hybrid, and the problem is that term can be used in a lot of different ways, and it is used in different ways, oftentimes because whoever is saying it is trying to position whatever solution they offer in the marketplace as the best solution. And there was a time it's kind of died down, but a couple of years ago, certainly it was kind of the sexy thing to do to refer to something as a hybrid solution. And so there's different flavors of it out there, but at a kind of a high level, it's the idea that you're in a hybrid scenario if you're able to offer both commission and fee, which again, for many of you, you're already in that situation. Even if your wirehouse is typically not thought of as some hybrid solution, arguably it is a type of hybrid solution because you're offering both of those solutions now. I would argue, while there's no regulatorily defined definition of hybrid, excuse me, I would argue that its purest definition is if you were to go out and start your own RIA, and the RIA itself cannot offer commission solutions. If you have legacy assets that are still on the commission side, and there might be reasons you need or want to keep those assets long-term, technically that is not under the RIA. And so the idea is, okay, could you go out, start your own RIA, all the benefits, reasons you might do that, but you need something to do with your commission assets. And so you could potentially pair that with what is often referred to as an RIA-friendly broker-dealer, creating this hybrid arrangement. So I would argue the purest definition of a hybrid is start your own RIA, but have some sort of broker-dealer solution for the commission assets. That's often referred to as the RIA-friendly broker-dealer part of this. So what does that look like? What's that arrangement like? So if you were to do what I just described, typically the way it works is, hey, in the RIA-friendly broker-dealer's mind, and keep in mind there's only a small handful of kind of specialty broker-dealers in that space. So this is not just your average run-of-the-mill broker-dealer out there that's able or willing to offer this arrangement, but there are a small handful that say, hey, advisor, if you want to go start your own RIA, put all your fee-based assets under it, use whatever custodian you want, use whatever technology you want, whatever the case is, hey, you go do that over there, and we, the broker-dealer, will be your solution for your remaining commission assets. And as a result, we're not going to take any sort of override, any sort of payout on your fee-based assets. We're just going to essentially stay in our lane, get our payout on the commission assets that you were going to put with us. So that, in its most basic form, is kind of the arrangement of having your own RIA and the so-called RIA-friendly broker-dealer. Now, that's the arrangement. Now, from a payout perspective, again, generally you can set this up with an RIA-friendly broker-dealer that will not take an override on your advisory assets. They basically consider that an outside business activity. They say, hey, that's your RIA. Have at it. You keep 100% of that, run your own P&L. And then for the commission assets that you have with them, it typically is going through an independent broker-dealer style payout grid. So the same thing you'd see with a typical independent broker-dealer, maybe for all of your business, they're saying, hey, for your piece of the pie that you're going to put with us, here's the payout, and the more revenue production you do through us, maybe the higher the payout that would be. But that's the extent of the economics that we retain as the RIA-friendly broker-dealer. So excuse me, because of that, it's important to keep in mind that another variable you have to factor is the minimums that these RIA-friendly broker-dealers typically require to do this arrangement with you. So because they are only retaining a payout on the commission production, they're not taking some over here to the RIA-friendly, there has to be enough meat on the bone here. So if they're only taking a scrape, and I'll just, as simple numbers, let's say they're taking a 15% haircut, so you're getting 85%. Again, it could go more or less depending on your size, but with that example, because they're not taking money on the fee base, that's the only way they're generating revenue. So you can't just show up there with $10,000 a year in commission production that you want to keep and say, hey, I'd love to use your RIA-friendly broker-dealer, and you're only going to keep, again, the simple example, 15%, so it's going to be $1,500. that's not worth it to them. There's not enough meat on the bone. That doesn't make sense for all the responsibilities and things they need to add value to you as the RIA that's using them. So they won't do it. So just know that this arrangement exists out there. There's typically minimums. Those minimums are usually with most of the options at about $100,000 a year in commission production. So you might have, who knows what you have on the RIA side, $500,000, million, $5 million in revenue, whatever the case is. But it's like, hey, if you want to use an RIA-Friendly Broker-Dealer, hey, that's the RIA-Friendly Broker-Dealer, so I'm going to take a payout on that. It usually starts at about $100,000 for it to make sense for them to consider entering into that arrangement with you. So keep that in mind on the minimums. Excuse me. And then when you evaluate these, again, there's not that many to choose from in the marketplace. There's kind of two main things that you're asking them about. Number one is, again, what are those economics? So I just gave you an example. It's typically in that independent broker-dealer style range, but you'd want to say, hey, here's all the production I have. Here's what I would be bringing. Hey, with your solution, what would that payout be? And what might other fees you have that you charge separate from that? Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, that's an important part of the conversation. The other piece, though, that's important to understand and ask them about is, because you are going to be a registered representative of their broker-dealer, they still have a responsibility to quote unquote supervise you as one of their registered reps. Now, they would prefer to have nothing to do with the RIA because they're not taking any sort of override on the RIA business. That's 100% for you. They're not keeping any of that. So they'd prefer to not have anything to do with that. However, because you're registered rep with theirs, they still have some degree of supervisory responsibility over you, some of which could bleed in to the RIA side. And it might be as simple as disclosures or trading activity, that type of thing. But you would want to evaluate, hey, if I were to use you, how would you supervise me both when I'm acting in that commission capacity? And then how much to a degree will you also need to kind of look over the fence to a bit? Again, they'd prefer to not do that at all. They do have some responsibility. So you would want to understand what that looks like as you evaluate a potential RIA-friendly broker-dealer partner. Now, the final takeaway I'll leave you on this is you might not need this at all. As I talk about in several episodes, part of the exercise of exploring the RIA model is to say, okay, what does your practice look like now? What would it look like in the RIA space? What are all these operational models you could do? Who are the vendors, all that sort of thing. And so part of that, and this is a typical part of the conversations I have with advisors, say, okay, tell me about the fee-based side of your practice and what's that look like and how do you manage the assets and blah, blah, blah. And then what's the commission side look like and what remains on that side? And oftentimes it's legacy variable annuity positions that have been acquired for the client, sold to the client, perhaps over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It was done on a commission basis. They're still paying a trail. Sometimes in aggregate, that amount of revenue can be significant, perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not something you want to try to walk away from. But other times it could be other things. It could be concentrated stock positions. It could be A-share mutual funds or whatnot. And as I talk about in different episodes, I did a recent one too on kind of how to solve for your remaining commission assets. A lot of time there's some good solutions out there for a lot of those different buckets, whether it's VA positions you still have or how to handle concentrated stock positions or those mutual funds. There's potential that you might be able to, as I call it, solve for those pieces in a way that you convert them, move them. There's other solutions that ultimately you might not even need an RIA-friendly broker-dealer, which if you can get to that point, your life would be simpler because it's just a cleaner setup to not, if possible, be tied to a broker-dealer because there is that supervision responsibility. It does add some complication to the RIA. So you might, depends on the composition of that, not even need the RIA-friendly broker-dealer. But to the degree it is a big enough part of your business and an important enough part of your business, and maybe some of these other solutions don't make sense, or that's just something you prefer not to do, it typically is there available for you to use, again, provided the right size, product mix, that sort of thing. That's a typical conversation I have with advisors to say, hey, let's understand what your book looks like. What do these pieces look like, particularly on the commission side? And then of all the different ways you could potentially solve for that, RIA-friendly broker-deal being one of them, what's best for you and your practice and your client? So happy to have that sort of conversation with you as well. First things first, though, as I said at the top, my name is Brad Wales with Transition to RIA. This is the type of thing I help advisors with all day long. Again, looking at your practice, going through all these sorts of questions, all these sorts of kind of examples of how things can be done if you were to choose to go down an RIA path. Again, happy to have that conversation with you as well. But first things first, head on over to transitiontoria.com, where you can find this entire series in video format, podcast format. I have articles, I have white papers, and at the top of every page is a contact link. If you click on that, you can instantly and easily schedule time to have a one-on-one conversation with me. Whether you want to talk about today's topic or anything else RIA related, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Again, transitiontoria.com. And with that, I hope you found value in today's episode, and I'll see you on the next one.